Lee McMillan. It's been an interesting few days, 3 days of training and testing the race management software. Valuable for INEOS Britannia?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really valuable for us getting out there and you know, getting a bit more time on the AC40, which hasn't been our primary boat or goal for the campaign so far, and also just kind of getting our heads around how the race management systems are going to work. And it's obviously still a lot of, you know, teething issues. It's the first time they've tried to get it all up and running, so there's a bit to do there, but it's great to get a first look at it all and try and kind of get our heads around it as best possible.
Seemed to try a few different scenarios today in terms of the way the racing was set up. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we did a bit of match racing at the beginning. The wind was obviously very light, so it was difficult to get, you know, a course set and get things rumbling. And again, you know, getting all of the race management side of things all fully set up and ready, you know, took a bit of time. But, you know, we got a couple of match race scenarios in with the Kiwis at the beginning, and then we got a couple of fleet races in at the end. But, you know, the wind was very light, so it's, you know, right on the edge. But it was really good to get a first glimpse at it all.
When you say very light, what are we talking about?
Yeah, well, it is between kind of 6 to 8 knots today, so at the bottom end, you know, it was pretty marginal, under 6 at times. Yeah, so it was a light day.
You seemed pretty strong in the match racing and then struggled a bit in the fleet racing, was our observation. What was going on in the fleet racing?
I guess the wind had died a bit more, and you know, just kind of, I guess, getting our heads into the boats with you know, other boats around. Maybe not as polished as we'd like to be at this stage, but obviously, you know, we've got a lot to look at, a lot to work on, and make sure that we're, you know, learning everything from these days as we possibly can to take it into the fleet racing, because ultimately for the next 2 events on these boats, that's what it comes down to.
In general terms, what have you noticed the other teams are doing maybe differently to you, or just generally different?
I mean, generally over the 3 days we felt pretty strong, so there's nothing we want to kind of you know, throw our, you know, training guide in the bin. I think certainly kind of getting into the dirty air and the light, you know, getting into those moments, you know, maybe moding the boat for the very bottom end of the range is something, the one area we've got to look at.
Who has impressed you the most from the other teams and over these 3 days?
I mean, we've obviously raced against the Kiwis the most, and that was our first glimpse at looking at the Americans and the Italian team. So it's hard to really comment. I think you know, everyone had their moment, so yeah, no one's really standing out at this point.
It seemed obvious today that, and over the 3 days, that crisp boat handling is absolutely essential in any one design fleet, but more so in a foiling fleet. How much time will you dedicate on that in the AC40 in the lead up to Villanova?
We're certainly going to put some more time on the boat than we have up to now, but it's still not our primary focus. So, you know, the Cup itself and designing and having a fast boat for the America's Cup has got to be our absolute goal. So, but sure, you know, as we get closer to the event, there'll be a few more training days. I think there's another kind of one of these weekends set up as well, where we'll be racing against the other teams. But ultimately, yeah. The goal is the America's Cup, so it's not all about the AC40 for now.
Fantastic, thanks Lee. Jimmy Spithill, you were helming on starboard today, the Italian AC40. It looked like a good day for you. You looked pretty slick out on the racecourse when you were match racing. You guys invented the dual helmsman thing. Do you think that helped today and over the last couple of days?
I think all of the teams now have invested a significant amount of time in the dual helm role, and actually, I mean, for ourselves, we don't have a two boat program, AC40 program, so we're kind of used to racing a chase boat, so it was actually a fantastic couple of days for us just to be around some other boats for once.
Tell me about the experience of racing in a fleet race today for the first time. First time we've seen that. Looked pretty good from the chase boat.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, again, it's just good for us to get around another boat, another AC40. And the fleet race, yeah, just a different dynamic, and yeah, great to get out there and get around the track.
How much of a difference will it be when we've got 6 of those boats on the racecourse? There seems to be enough space for everybody today, but it's going to be pretty busy, isn't it, with 6 boats?
I think a lot of it will depend on the wind speed. You know, like today was obviously on the bottom end. I think as the wind speed increases, then it'll definitely get a little tighter out there.
There seemed to be very little difference in the boats, the one design after all, in terms of the performance in a straight line. but there were subtle differences in the way the boats were being sailed. What do you think you guys were doing particularly well today? Because you seem very strong whenever we saw you.
I think it was one of those days where everyone had some good moments and some bad moments, and again, until you really get around some other boats, you know, there's a lot to learn. Just a little technique differences, really watching what the others are doing. Again, we've been really focusing pretty hard on the teams that have been doing a lot of two boating with their AC40s, being the Kiwis and the Americans. And yeah, just tried to learn as much as we could going into today.
It's one design, but there are things you can do with the boat. Obviously don't tell us what things you are doing differently, but what type of things might you be doing differently? Is it the sails? Is it the way you sail the boat?
Well, yeah, I mean, the hardware is exactly the same as the others, and so it really just comes down to the teams using the controls, you know, cant, ride height, the trim of the boat, so obviously sails, technique, so there's a lot of little things there, and I think the whole fleet's just learning.
Okay, the breeze was a little bit up and down today. How does it change how you sail the boat as the breeze, say, starts to drop away from maybe 15 knots down to 10? Big differences?
Well, I mean, the last race for us, and actually the bottom of the course is generally lighter. You're more in kind of survival mode, and then consistently the top of the track had more breeze, so you're a little safer. But yeah, coming in to the bottom gate was, you know, there's a few manoeuvres where you're really just surviving.
Are you calling on any of the tricks of the trade that you learnt from the last Cup? I'm thinking JK manoeuvres. Is there anything new that we're going to see?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think we'll just have to wait and see what happens in Villanova. Again, for us, I mean, we're playing catch up. You know, we just don't have the time of the other teams in two boating or being around another AC40. So we've always been focused pretty hard on our development boat, and so we've just got a low hour count on the 40. So we're just trying to get as many as we can, really observant of what the other guys are doing, and we've got a long way to go. We've got quite a lot to learn.
Well, you're looking pretty good today, so thanks for sharing that with us, Jimmy.
Yeah, no worries.
Nice one.
Well, we entered at the beginning of 2022, so I feel like we've been racing ever since then. This is just part of the milestone of it. And yeah, I mean, it's good to have the boats out sailing, racing against each other. We've had a couple good days with Luna Rossa, and then we did a couple fleet races today, which were as good as as Ian and the race committee team worked out the kinks and the bugs between the media system and getting some of the autonomous marks in a spot that everything's functional. So I think for American Magic, you know, we got 15 months to get ourselves ready for the Challenger Series and for the America's Cup. So each one of these opportunities you take, and at the same time, you know, the lessons learned are building the foundation for our team.
And so we were sailing today on full one design gear. It seems like that made a difference in the light air in terms of getting on the foils. Would you agree on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the boats are, I mean, for what they are, the boats are reasonably good. I mean, you know, the boats are one design, and everybody has to deal with the same thing, and it's the one design equipment. I think what's great to see is the different styles and the different techniques that all the teams race with, and yet everybody gets a similar performance out of the boat. So there's a lot to learn there, and you know, the goal remains to win the America's Cup in an AC75 and not an AC40. And yet it's a great little platform to provide good one design racing.
So surely there must be differences on this one design sails and the sails you were able to develop so far.
Yeah, I mean, the one design sails, you know, I think they've worked very hard to streamline the operation and make everything as identical as it possibly can be. It's always amazing when you lay two identical triangles down on the floor, how they still come out different. And so I think that's what we're learning. I mean, that's certainly not a criticism. It's just more of a reality of when you take on a project in the manner that has been taken on here, there's always going to be subtle differences. You know, we enjoy sailing the boats in one design configuration, and we enjoy racing the boats in our, you know, when we have our two boat in-house racing with our foils and our sails on it. It's you know, the boat does come to life a little bit more.
Pete, 5 hours of sailing today, the longest day on the water so far, with different kind of objectives. Could you describe a little bit which were?
Yeah, well, it's obviously we haven't had the AC40 in Barcelona for very long, so it's a sailing team. It's an amazing opportunity to go out and get comfortable in some quite different conditions to what we sailed the 40 in New Zealand, and also the culmination of the race director Ian Murray and the rest of the team trying to introduce the race management system into the boat. So today we had a little bit of downtime, just trying to do drills for the race officers and race management system, media systems, trying to get everything working and be a test platform for them, and then also trying to have our own training. So long day on the water, but very productive.
From the sailor side, how is it going with the race management system and with the robotic marks and with the functionality of everything? Are you happy so far, or did you have any difficulties?
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the progression of the systems over the 3 days. From virtually everything getting bolted on the boat under a week ago to testing the systems for the first time. Every day we've had huge steps forward. There's obviously still a little bit to go, but it's been amazing to see the progression so far.
And when talking about performance today, we did 2 fleet races. On the first one, a solid lead and win. On the second one, a start on port tack with a very different strategy to most of the other teams. Could you give some details about it? Why you decided to do that, and if it was?
The first start we had, we thought was really nice conditions. It was probably 9 knots or something like that, so you didn't have to worry too much about the wind shadows. You could kind of manoeuvre anywhere, and we did a nice job putting the boat in a good spot. And then the second one, we actually ended up almost coming off the foil in a manoeuvre about 5 minutes out to the start, and barely made it back in time. So we're right on the back foot the whole way. And it was hard to get back into the race, but it definitely wasn't really our intention to start on port, but we just got a little bit too late. And that dying breeze, I think you saw everyone apart from Prada off the foil at the end and not actually finishing the race. So it's pretty tricky when it gets below that 7 knots to keep these boats going, especially when you're crossing the wind shadows. But it's great practice. It's super tough conditions, and we're really excited to be out there racing other teams.
Then after all the other teams left, we stayed training for at least 45 more minutes, doing some tacks and some dives in a dying breeze, maybe around 3.5 to 4 knots of intensity. Do you believe maneuvers in those kind of conditions are very critical and important?
Yeah, well, obviously those conditions, you can do a manoeuvre in lighter air, then you can take off. So it's incredibly important. You don't make the mistake in the manoeuvre, you keep foiling. And for us, we haven't had the opportunity to do much time in that super light stuff. So, to be able to actually try a few things that we'd been talking about throughout the day and put them into practice is, incredibly valuable. So, we're really happy with the day, the way we've evolved through it, and it's going to be a fun little period trying to figure out how to get a bit more speed out of the AC40s before Villanova.